I never pictured myself as the type to recount a story like this. In my own eyes, I was a careful one, the steady anchor, the voice of reason amid life's tempests. I didn't chase thrills or bask in disorder. I never sought to stand out, to command attention, or to fill some void with clamor. My desires were modest, a life built on trust, loyalty, and a gentle, enduring love. That, to me, was more than enough. Her name was Landra, a woman whose mere presence could still a room buzzing with chatter. She possessed a magnetic charm, an effortless grace that drew every gaze, particularly those of men. We crossed paths at a friend's engagement party, where she stood barefoot on the grass, a flute of crimson wine in her hand, radiating a quiet dominion over the scene. We talked beneath a canopy of stars at night, our conversation stretching into the early hours, and I was utterly captivated. Within half a year, we shared a home. A year after that, we stood before loved ones, pledging our lives to one another. In the beginning, Landra made me feel like the center of her universe. At crowded gatherings, she'd pull me close, her eyes sparkling with a teasing glint as she murmured words that sent my heart racing. I believed her untamed spirit was a treasure, a promise of a life filled with vibrant unpredictability. And vibrant it was, though not in the ways I had envisioned. In hindsight, the signs were there from the outset, faint but unmistakable. Her phone was always turned face down on the table. She'd disappear for hours without a word, only to reappear as if nothing had happened. Her moods could shift like a sudden squall, and any inquiry I made, questions any partner might ask, was met with a barbed retort. She had a knack for twisting things, making me feel as though I were the one stifling her, caging her free spirit. Perhaps I granted her too much leeway, too much faith. But the night that unraveled, everything arrived without prelude, on an ordinary Tuesday. She slipped through the front door long after midnight, her hair too perfectly styled, her scent too crisp, her eyes clouded with the haze of too many cocktails. I sat at the dining table, waiting in stillness. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I simply asked, my voice steady, "Where were you tonight, Landra?" She let out a sharp huff, a sound that sliced through the silence. "Why do you always have to interrogate me?" she shot back. "I'm not some child you get a track. You don't control me." "I never claimed to," I said, my tone unwavering. "But we're married. I think I deserve to know when you're gone for hours without a single word." She rolled her eyes, her voice thick with scorn. "You're so obsessive. I was out with friends." "What? Do I need your permission now?" "No," I replied, standing firm yet calm. "You don't need my permission, but you owe me honesty." That's when she laughed, a cold, cutting sound that reverberated in the room. Then came the words, delivered with venom softened only by the blur of alcohol. "I'm free to be with whoever I want," she said, her gaze locked on mine. "What are you going to do about it?" "Leave." She stood there, poised, perhaps anticipating that I'd collapse, that I'd scream, that I'd shatter something in a burst of fury. But I didn't. I looked at her, truly saw her, for what felt like the first time. In that instant, she wasn't my wife. She was a stranger cloaked in the guise of someone I once cherished. I said nothing. I didn't argue. I rose from the table, walked past her without so much as a glance, and made my way to the spare bedroom. I closed the door and turned the lock. She knocked once, her voice dripping with mockery through the wood. "Oh, go ahead. Play the martyr." Then she laughed again. I stayed silent. At first light, I rose before the dawn, packed a single bag, and drove to my sister's home. I left no letter, sent no text. I simply faded away as quietly as I could. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were prepared. I'd met with an attorney, organized everything with care. She was served at her office. Swift, professional, conclusive. She called me once. I didn't answer. Then came the messages, a torrent of them. First rage, then bewilderment, and finally a wave of apologies, each more frantic than the last. "I didn't mean it," she wrote. "You misunderstood everything. Let's talk. Don't discard what we had." But by then, I was already gone, not just in body, but in every way that mattered. Words like hers, flung with such reckless arrogance, don't dissolve. They endure, challenging you to act. And I did. I chose silence, not as defeat, but as my most resolute statement. I rebuilt my life with purpose, finding refuge in a modest cabin tucked among the hills. I worked remotely, channeling my focus into my own growth. The nights were heavy at first, steeped in solitude, but gradually, something changed. I began to feel a buoyancy I hadn't known in years. Liberation, clarity, a rediscovered sense of self-worth. People often ask, don't you regret not fighting harder for your marriage? I don't. Love shouldn't be a battlefield, a relentless trial of how much hurt you can withstand before you fracture. It should be a haven, a place of security. The night Landra taunted me, parading her betrayals and dared me to walk away. I grasped something vital. She mistook my restraint for weakness. But it wasn't. It was a sound of me stepping away, my integrity intact, my heart no longer hers to bruise. That silence spoke louder than any word she ever threw at me.